Imagine standing on the banks of the Nile. The water, the absolute lifeblood of your entire civilization has just turned to blood.
The total catastrophe.
You can probably smell the iron in the air, the fish are all dead. It's a scene of absolute devastation. And you might think, logically, okay, surely that's it.
Point made.
Yeah, surely the point has been made.
But as we know from the text, the point was evidently missed, or at least willfully ignored.
Right, because today, we're looking at what happens immediately after that first strike. We're not just looking at a list of disasters here. We're doing a deep dive into the second, third, and fourth plagues of Egypt.
Frogs, lice, and flies.
Frogs, lice, and flies. And I have to be honest, when I first looked at this list, it felt a bit, underwhelming. Like we went from the river is blood to a bad camping trip.
It does sound like a step down on the surface. But that's actually the trap. If you read the source text closely, and we are looking specifically at the narrative in Exodus, this isn't just, a random assortment of pests. It's a very specific, escalating deconstruction of a superpower.
And that's the mission for this deep dive.
Yeah.
We want to move past the cartoon version of frogs jumping around and look at this as, a high-stakes political thriller.
That's a good way to put it.
You've got negotiations, you've got magical warfare, psychological breaking points.
That's precisely. We are witnessing a clash between a divine mandate, let my people go, and a total imperial refusal. And the insight we're going to uncover today is how the dynamic shifts with these three specific plagues.
Okay.
It stops being just about raw power and starts becoming about precision. It's about stripping away Pharaoh's ability to control his own borders, his own people, and eventually his own mind.
So let's set the scene. The blood is cleared, 7 days have passed. The ecosystem presumably starts to reset. And then the Lord speaks to Moses again. The message is the same. Let my people go.
But this time the threat is, it's amphibious.
It is.
The warning is very clear. If thou refuse to let them go, behold, I will smite all thy borders with frogs.
Smite with frogs. Now, again, I have to push back on this. Frogs are gross, sure. But smite, it sounds almost comical. Like, oh no, it's bumpy.
It sounds comical to us. But you have to understand the Egyptian context. The frog wasn't just some random animal. It was associated with Hekt, a goddess of fertility and resurrection.
Oh, interesting. So it's a religious symbol.
It is. And usually fertility is a good thing. You want an abundance of life.
Yeah.
But the text here uses that idea of abundance in a way that implies suffocation. The river swarms with them.
Right.
And this is the key, it lists the locations. It's not just, there will be frogs outside.
I have the list here. It says they will go into the house, the bedchamber upon the bed, into the house of servants, and this is the detail that got me. Into thine ovens and into thy kneading troughs.
Think about what that means. The kneading trough and the oven.
That's the food supply.
That is your daily bread.
So it's not just that you step on them on the way to work.
Yeah.
It's that you can't even eat without contamination.
It's the total destruction of the domestic sphere. The palace usually offers insulation from these problems, right? Pharaoh doesn't deal with pests.
No, he has people for that.
But here, the text is explicit. Into thy bedchamber. There is no safe zone. The sanctity of the royal private life is completely gone.
It's psychological warfare. You're the living God King, the most powerful man on earth, and you literally cannot find a clean place to sleep without hearing a squish.
Exactly. It turns a symbol of life, the frog, into a suffocating curse. It's too much life, all in the wrong places.
Now, this is where the story takes a turn that I find genuinely baffling. We know from the previous plague that Pharaoh has his magicians, right, his sorcerers.
Yep.
And he calls them in to handle this.
He does, and the text says, and the magicians did so with their enchantments and brought up frogs upon the land of Egypt.
Okay, stop right there. You have a massive frog infestation problem. Your boss, the king, is furious. He calls you in, and your solution is to make more frogs.
It's a profound failure of utility, isn't it?
It's worse than useless. It's active sabotage. Why would they do that?
It's a great question. The text implies that their power, at least at this stage, is limited to replication, not reversal. They can mimic the sign to prove that their gods also have power, effectively saying, look, this isn't special, we can do it too.
So it's a pride thing, a defense of their whole worldview.
Exactly. But practically speaking, it's a disaster. It proves they have supernatural power, sure, but they lack the authority to command the plague to stop. They can add to the chaos, but they can't restore order.
It's like a plumber coming to a flooded house and turning on another faucet just to prove he knows how water works.
That is the perfect analogy.
Look, I can do it too. Great, thanks. That's not helping.
And Pharaoh, to his credit, seems to realize this immediately. Because look at what he does next. He doesn't ask his magicians to fix it.
Right. This is the first crack in the armor. The text says, Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron and said, "Entreat the Lord that he may take away the frogs from me."
This is a huge pivot. I mean, up until now, Pharaoh has been dismissing this Lord of the Hebrews.
Who is the Lord?
Who is the Lord that I should obey him? But here, he's forced to acknowledge that this entity is the only one who can flip the switch. He is bargaining. Take them away, and I will let the people go.
And Moses accepts. But then Moses does something kind of weird. He asks Pharaoh, "Glory over me. When shall I entreat for thee?" Which I think basically means you pick the time.
It's a power move. Glory over me is an idiom that basically means I'll defer to you. By letting Pharaoh set the deadline, Moses is removing any doubt.
Right, because if the frogs just slowly hopped away over a week, Pharaoh could say, oh, it was a natural migration.
Exactly, but if Pharaoh says Tuesday at noon and they die at Tuesday at noon...
That's a controlled demolition.
Precisely, it proves control.
So Pharaoh answers, and his answer is, tomorrow.
Why do you think he said that?
I don't get it. If I have frogs in my bed and in my dough, I'm screaming right now, immediately, yesterday.
Why spend one more night in the misery? It's one of the great mysteries of the text. Some scholars think he was hoping they would just disappear on their own overnight, so he wouldn't owe Moses the favor.
Plausible.
Others think it's just the sluggishness of a bureaucrat who isn't used to snacking to someone else's timeline.
Or maybe just pride. Even in defeat, he wants to feel like he has some control. I'll say when.
Very likely. I'll suffer one more night just to show I'm not panicking. But Moses accepts it. He says, "Be it according to thy word." Specifically so Pharaoh will know that there is none like unto the Lord our God.
So the next day comes. Moses cries out to the Lord. And the frogs die, but they don't vanish. The text is pretty gross about this.
It is.
It says they died out of the houses, out of the villages, and out of the fields. And then, this is the visceral part, they gathered them together upon heaps, and the land stank.
The smell is important. It's the lingering consequence. The immediate threat is gone. The frogs aren't jumping in your bed anymore.
But the pollution.
The stink of the judgment remains. It's a reminder that you can't just wipe the slate clean.
And as soon as the pressure is off. But when Pharaoh saw that there was respite, he hardened his heart.
And there's the pattern. He got what he wanted, relief, and immediately reneged on the deal. It's purely transactional for him.
So we move to plague number 3, and the protocol shifts entirely. With the frogs, there was a warning.
A clear warning.
All them go, or else. With the third plague, lice, there is zero warning.
Correct. The Lord simply tells Moses to tell Aaron, "Stretch out thy rod and smite the dust of the land."
And the result is terrifying. All the dust of the land became lice throughout all the land of Egypt. I mean, I've been to dusty places. Dust is everywhere. If every single speck of dust turns into a parasite.
That's inescapable torment.
Utterly.
It's a transformation of matter. We aren't just calling animals out of the river anymore. We are taking the fundamental particle of the desert dust and turning it into a biting, crawling pestilence upon man and upon beast.
And once again, the magicians step up. They get their enchantments ready. They try to bring forth lice. And for the first time,
they hit a wall. The text is brief, but devastating. But they could not.
That has to be a shock to the system.
Mm-hmm.
Up until now, they've been keeping pace, sort of. Why do you think they failed here? Is dust just harder to work with than water?
The text doesn't specify the mechanics of the magic, but the implication is a clear limit to their power. Perhaps they could mimic the macro frogs, blood, but the micro, the creation of life from dust, was just beyond them.
Okay.
But the failure isn't even the most important part. It's their reaction.
Right. They don't make excuses. They turn to Pharaoh and they admit it. They say, this is the finger of God.
The finger of God. That's a heavy phrase.
It sounds like they're terrified.
Well, they are experts in the occult, in magic, in the power dynamics of Egypt. They are telling their boss, we are out of our depth. This isn't a trick. This is a divine power that we cannot replicate or fight.
They're essentially resigning from the conflict.
Exactly.
You would think that would be the moment, right? Your own experts tell you, hey, we're fighting a losing battle here. But does Pharaoh listen?
No. Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he hearkened not unto them. He's not just ignoring Moses now. He's ignoring his own cabinet.
He's isolating himself in his stubbornness. He thinks he knows better than the people he hired to know these things.
Mm-hmm. Which leads us to the fourth plague, flies.
And we see another shift. We go back to the warning system. Moses is told to rise up early and catch Pharaoh as he goes to the water.
And the threat is swarms of flies. Now, the word used here usually implies a mixture, a grievous swarm. Some interpret it as biting insects, but we usually envision a thick, cloud-like invasion.
But there's a twist in this one. A new variable is introduced, and I think this is the most critical part of this section of the story.
Yes, and this is crucial for you to grasp. Up until now, the Hebrews, the people of Israel living in Goshen, have presumably suffered along with the Egyptians.
Right. The frogs were everywhere.
But here, God draws a line in the sand.
The text says, "And I will sever in that day the land of Goshen in which my people dwell, that no swarms of flies shall be there."
The word sever implies a clean cut, a distinction.
Why do that now? Why not earlier with the frogs or the lice?
The text actually gives us the reason. To the end thou mayest know that I am the Lord in the midst of the earth. It proves precision. If the whole land is suffering, you could argue it's just a bad year, a natural disaster. But if there is an invisible wall, and on one side it's swarming with flies, and on the other side, specifically where the Hebrews live, it's perfectly clear.
That's not random.
That implies an intelligent directing will.
It's geographic targeting.
Exactly. It implies the Lord is right there in the midst of their territory, controlling the borders better than Pharaoh can.
So the flies come, and the description is intense. The land was corrupted by reason of the swarm of flies. This isn't just an annoyance, it's ruining the country.
And Pharaoh breaks again.
He calls for Moses. But this time, he tries a new negotiation tactic. He doesn't just say, make it stop. He makes a counteroffer.
Right. He says, "Go ye, sacrifice to your God in the land."
In the land. So, okay, you can have your religious festival, but keep it here. Don't leave Egypt.
It's a classic compromise. He wants to appear to grant their request without actually giving up control over their bodies.
Because if they stay, they're still his subjects, his workforce.
Exactly. If they leave, even for a few days, he loses that control.
But Moses shoots this down immediately, and his reasoning gives us this really interesting peek into the culture clash happening here. He says, "It is not meet so to do." Basically, we can't do that.
And why?
Because we shall sacrifice the abomination of the Egyptians to the Lord our God.
This is a bold statement. Moses is saying, the animals we are going to sacrifice are the very animals you Egyptians hold sacred, whether that's cattle, rams, or goats, animals associated with their gods.
He literally says, "Shall we sacrifice the abomination of the Egyptians before their eyes, and will they not stone us?" He's saying, if we do this downtown, there will be a riot. Your people will kill us.
It highlights that the Hebrew worship is fundamentally incompatible with the Egyptian state religion. They can't coexist in the same space.
So he insists, we will go 3 days' journey into the wilderness.
So Pharaoh, realizing he has no leverage because his land is being corrupted, agrees to a second compromise.
And what's this one?
He says, "I will let you go, only you shall not go very far away."
Not very far away. Still trying to keep them on a leash.
He's technically agreeing, but he's adding a stipulation that lets him maybe chase them down or keep an eye on them, and then he repeats his plea, "Entreat for me."
And Moses agrees to pray for the flies to leave. But he adds a warning this time, a very stern warning. He says, "But let not Pharaoh deal deceitfully anymore."
Moses is calling him out. He's saying, "I know what you did last time with the frogs. Don't lie to me again." The power dynamic has completely flipped.
Wow.
Moses is now the one setting the ethical terms of the engagement.
So Moses goes out, he prays, the Lord removes the flies, and the text is very specific again. There remained not one, a total cleanup.
And yet,
And Pharaoh hardened his heart at this time also, neither would he let the people go.
it's tragic, really. The moment the consequence is removed, the compliance just evaporates.
So let's look at the big picture here. We've gone through 3 plagues in this session. Frogs, lice, flies. What's the pattern you're seeing?
Well, look at the progression of the opposition. With the frogs, the magicians replicate the plague. They're still players in the game, even if they're making it worse.
Right, they can still do something.
Then, with the lice, they fail completely and admit this is the finger of God. They're neutralized.
The frogs are
They're
here!
out of the
Flee!
game.
To the
And with the
pyramids,
flies,
go!
God himself makes a distinction between
Do not
his
look
people
back!
and Pharaoh's people. So we're seeing this tightening of the screws.
Yeah.
The Egyptian support system is failing, and the miraculous nature of the plagues is becoming more and more precise and undeniable.
It really highlights the stubbornness of Pharaoh. With the frogs, he had a respite. With the lice, his own team told him to quit. With the flies, he saw a miraculous border protecting Goshen. And every single time, the result is the same: hardened heart.
And that is the core conflict. It's a struggle between visible power, the signs, the finger of God, and the human will to retain control. Pharaoh is willing to let his land stink, let his people itch, and let the ground be corrupted, all to avoid saying, "I surrender."
It's a heavy realization. We started with frogs in the bed, which sounds, almost funny, but we end with a nation in ruins and a leader who refuses to see reality.
And that raises an important question for anyone listening.
What's that?
The magicians, the people paid to support Pharaoh's worldview, they recognized the truth when the evidence became overwhelming. They said, "This is God." Pharaoh saw the same evidence but came to a different conclusion.
So the question to leave you with is this. When evidence contradicts your worldview, what does it actually take to change a mind? The experts changed theirs. The leader didn't. At what point does hardening your heart stop being a choice and start being a permanent condition?
That is the dangerous threshold.
Something to think about next time you see a fly buzzing around your kitchen. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
See you next time.